Hello everybody, it's good to be here again today. My name is Kim Miller, and today I'll be discussing my assessment of Remember the Titans. I always find it very interesting, the impact that a good leader makes on a team. Their ability to help them overcome obstacles, bringing them together to cohesively rise above any situation that rises. In Remember the Titans, that is exactly what Coach Boone did. Except he didn't just affect the team, he made an impression on the entire community. At the very end of the movie, an older Cheryl Yost states that people say that it can't work, black and white. But here we make it work every day. We have our disagreements, of course. But before we reach for hate, always, always, we remember the Titans. This is over 10 years after Coach Boone had taken the head coach position at T.C. Williams High School. And it has been over 10 years that this ripple effect of his leadership is still being realized. That's awesome leadership. Today I'm going to be discussing three things with you. The leadership styles of both Coach Boone and Coach Yost, also the followership types of some of the team members, and lastly the organizational cultural concerns that made it difficult for change for the team. First, the leadership styles of Coach Boone and Coach Yost. There are three types of leadership: authoritarian, participative, and delegative. Coach Boone was an authoritarian leader. He knew what needed to be done. He knew how to do it, and he had the followers that were motivated to do it. Now, Coach Boone knew that his job was on the line. If he didn't win games, he was going to lose his job. So he knew exactly what he needed to do. He was very focus-minded. He told the followers, the team, exactly what they needed to do, and he expected them to do them. Now, an authoritarian leader does not do very well. They're not as effective if their followers don't respect them. And that is exactly why, on several occasions, Coach Boone had to go to Coach Yost and confront him about the fact that he wasn't respecting his authority. And he told him he either needed to get on board or not. Now, Coach Yost, on the other hand, was more of a participative leader. He really relied more on the feedback of his followers. Now, as a leader, he had went to Coach Boone on several occasions and tried to get his feedback, tried to give some input, but Coach Boone wasn't having any of that. Coach Yost would have preferred to have had some feedback, some interaction, but Coach Boone was just different. He was an authoritarian. Those were the different types of leaders that we were looking at in Remember the Titans. Now, next we're going to talk about the followership types of some of the team members. Now, the Kelly two-dimensional model of behavior, follower behavior, states that there are 5 types of followership. One, there's an alienated follower, there's a yes people follower, the sheep follower, the effective follower, and the survival follower. Now, these different types of followerships are just descriptors. They're not meant to be used as stereotype, and they are based on whatever circumstances a situation might bring. So there's no right or wrong as far as followership types or good or bad. So I want you to keep that in mind. And also, these followerships are set up and designed on a chart, on a scale, in 2 behavioral dimensions, one being the active engagement of the follower and 2 being the critical thinking of the follower. Now, these followership types were all demonstrated throughout Remember the Titans in the followers. I'm just going to give you a couple that I noticed. One alienated follower, I would say, could be Ray. He was pretty distant. He wasn't very active. He didn't take part in what was going on, and he was very critical in his thinking. So he was an alienated follower. Sheep followers, they pretty much go with the flow. And if you noticed in the movie, there were a lot of team members that their names weren't mentioned. You could pretty much say that they were sheep followers. The yes people follower, I would say, would be Louie. He was happy and happy-go-lucky. He'd do anything that the coach or anybody else asked him, for the matter. He was very active, but he didn't really think or judge too much. He wasn't very critical in his thinking. The effective follower, I would say, would be Jerry, especially later in the movie. He was very active throughout the movie, especially taking on leadership roles as a follower, and his critical thinking helped bring the team together. Survivors, as far as survivor followers, that's just a group within all of these different categories, and those are just the followers that are just surviving. They're doing their part, surviving, doing whatever they have to do to complete a mission. Moving on, organizational cultural concerns. Now, culture is all about different beliefs, the norms, the values that an organization might have. Every organization develops their own cultural norms in order to cope with whatever environment they're in. In remembering the Titans, there were 3 concerns that I'd like to bring up that affected the way that, or the difficulty they had in making some changes. One, T.C. Williams High School was in their first year of integrating black and white students. This was very difficult because it was in a time of racial discrimination. There was a lot of segregation, and so at this point they were just trying to integrate and learn to live with one another and their different race issues. Number 2, there were already key white players on the team. So this made it very difficult for the team as they came together, because these white players, they were expecting their positions back, but yet we had this whole new group of players coming in, and there was going to be a fight for those positions. And 3, the members, the key members in the community were the white players' parents. And so this made it very difficult too, because politics came into play here. So those were some of the difficulties that the team was facing as far as organizational cultural concerns. Now, I just find that it's awesome, the transformational leadership that took place here in Remember the Titans. In our text, James Burns defines transformational leadership as a process in which leaders and followers raise one another to higher levels of mortality and motivation. His view is centered around the ability to address the real needs of followers, and that is exactly what Coach Boone did. He addressed the needs of the followers on the team. He was all in. So he took a team that was on the brink of destruction, and he took them to a perfect season, 13-0. They won the national championship, and it changed the fabric of an entire community forever. That's awesome. What I've discussed with you today is I've discussed with you the leadership styles of both Coach Boone and Coach Yost. I've also talked to you about the followership types that were noticed amongst the followers in the movie Return of the Titans, and I've also discussed with you the cultural organizational concerns that made it difficult for change within the team. As leaders, there are a lot of different things that we have to consider.